1 second,
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We have Lonis Tuss from OutBack. He's going to be presenting on the Mate 3. This is very exciting. My introduction to the Mate 3 was very, I don't know how to put it, but it was just very relieving. I was troubleshooting a system that there was an issue with the generator, but I kept on having to walk through the old Mate with the customer, and OutBack had actually sent us a demo model at that time for the Mate 3. So I just forwarded it on to the customer, and it made such a difference in troubleshooting. So Lonis, we're really excited to hear more on this. Just for everyone's attention, if you have questions as Lonis is speaking, feel free to type them in on the side, and then we'll pause him and ask the question at that time. So you'll see on your little control panel area to type in questions, and then we'll pause them and ask. So Lonis, I'll hand it over to you. Thanks again for doing this.
Thank you for the introduction there, Ed. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. As Ed had said, my name is Lonis. I work for OutBack. I've been here approximately 5 years, and we finally come out with some new gear. It's pretty exciting on this end. I can't say that I know everything about the Mate 3. Matter of fact, I will never say I know everything about anything. And that being said, I wanted to go ahead and give you my contact information. And this is it here. This is tech support. So if you ever have questions on OutBack, feel free to call tech support. They have email address. I have, this is my phone number here and my email address. So if you ever have any questions on OutBack, feel free to give myself or during working hours, tech support a call. We try very hard to help the end users and everyone else. And that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through this. As Ed had said, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. Usually when I'm in front of people, I just let them know that, hey, interrupt me at any time. We can go in any direction you want. This being a webinar, I've got something done up to go through, and I'll just start with it. So this is the Mate 3. This is how it looks. I won't read each line, but what we have here, some of the design goals we had was something that you could upgrade and could be upgraded as we go along. We tried to leave enough room so that as this product ages and matures, that we can add things to it. One of the things that they did try to do with this is, as myself and engineers and everybody traveled around speaking to end users and dealers, everyone had, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? We tried to listen to the feedback, and hopefully we got it right, or as close as we can at this point. One nice thing about it is it's field upgradable. A little more on that later. Extremely easy to upgrade. Unlike the old Mate where you had to send it in or we would send you a replacement. It was still free, but nonetheless, this is something that's going to avoid that shipping time. The menu structure, it makes a little bit more sense. The graphical display is wonderful. I tell you, some of the things that I have one at my bench here, and I really, really like the graphs that you can do with this on the unit itself. It really gives you a great visual. There's a system configuration wizard. One of the things that everybody, I guess, complained about is that when you had a single inverter, you could program it, but when you had a 10 stack, you still had to talk to 10 individual inverters or 5 charge controllers and 5 inverters. So with this configuration wizard, you can put in the information and it writes to everything in the system in one fell swoop. So that's pretty nice. There's going to be the internet-enabled HTML and Ethernet port. This is going to be exciting for us. It's going to really upgrade our capabilities for just better access to what's going on, being able to talk to your system from a remote distance eventually is where we're heading. The data logging capability, tell you the truth, I didn't know a whole lot about that until this webinar was signed up, and I started going through that, and I learned quite a bit even just this morning as I was preparing for this. And the multi-level user access, I don't know about you, but I started in tech support here, and you wouldn't believe how often people would call up and go, your system isn't working as positive. And we go, well, all right, and you'd walk through, and invariably someone trying to learn our gear went through and just changed some settings they didn't even know they changed, and now it doesn't work anymore, and so you'd have to walk through. So there is going to be multi-user levels where you can lock people out of their system, which I imagine is going to cause some trouble as time goes on too, but it's an attempt to do what was asked of us. So that being said, what we went here was with a much larger processor. There's 5 hotkeys. You used to have on the Mate the 2 keys on the middle and the left and right, and you would press 1 4 times to get critical information, and you had the invert side. I'm talking about the ACN button and the inverter button. We spread them out over there, made it so you can go to each one of them as you want to and not 4 or 5 button presses. And with the screen, you also get much more information at a single viewing, and that is really nice. It's nice to be able to see the voltages, the current. We've got frequencies on there and different things like that. And Darren being a modern person, that's Darren Emmons, he put the scroll wheel on there, which is really nice for speed dialing, so to speak. And so with that being said, we'll just keep going. This is the physical overview of it. It gives you, you know, the dimensions and everything should you need them. It shows you the SD card on the right-hand side. And various feedback on this. Some people say it's a retro 80. So, you know, various feedback on how it actually looks. But so far, it seems to be working pretty great. So on the back is you have the Ethernet port and OutBack or the plug into the Mate. So let's see. I just saw something pop up on the screen, and no questions. Okay. So, and again, feel free to ask questions as you want. That's actually great. So,
hey, Lotus, we actually have a quick question
sure.
about the scroll wheel. Are they going to be making any improvements on it? Or is that a standard one? One of our customers has actually been using it, and they're finding it's a little sticky.
Tell you the truth, I'm not certain. I would imagine that if we get much feedback on that, something will be done if that is a problem. That's the first I've heard of that. So if you could write down that customer's name for me, and then that would give me information to fire back at the people. Because, boy, you know, one thing that is important is us being able to take feedback like this back to the engineers and say, hey, we think this, we've heard this, and then we could look into it. Anything like that, it would be great to have a name and even an email address so we could try that, follow up.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
So we were there, and the mounting system that we're using, you have the B3 bracket, and that would hang on the 500 or the FlexWare 1000. You also have the a mounting plate for a electrical box to hang on the wall. And the third method is just a surface mount, and the Mate would mount right to that. You would attach that to a wall and be able to have it mounted that way. One of the things they tried to do was spread the keys out. And what I mean by that is before you had the inverter button, and it would give you, basically, it's going to do the same thing. You have on, off, and search, and that's the inverter button. That's what the other button did on the other Mate, and they've kept the same things. But you'll see on this, you actually see quite a bit more information. You've got what mode is on it on or is off. You got the battery voltage, input voltage, the loads there, and the input and output voltages, and we have much more screen to work with. So at each level, you'll see far more information than you ever could before, which is pretty sweet. So I'm just going to go through these buttons. On the charger button, again, it would be like, I believe it was the third press of the ACN button on the old Mate. And here you see the battery voltage, absorb, float settings, charger control of the on, off, auto, whatever's in there. And you also get the time remaining in the stage you're in. So again, instead of a single line of screens, you've got 4 or 3 lines there. and quite helpful. If you want to go to the bulk chart, you can just press bulk just like it was on one of the buttons of the ACN. If you want to go to EQ, that replaces one of the buttons on the ACN. That was, so really what we did is took the same information, spread it out a little bit. For the generator, this is pretty nice. They've added some other stuff. It tells you how many, on the top left, you'll see how many hours is actually has the generator run. So you'll get an hour meter of their generator, how long it's run, tells you the mode, tells you whether it's off, on or off, and it also says if there's any faults, and it tells you the last run, what caused the last generator start signal. In this case, it was a manual, and it happened on Friday, 12/17. So you get the month, the date, and the year. You even get the minute down to the second of when that started, which is quite a bit of information. Gives you the time of day up here also. So, and again, with the other one, you could have auto on or off, and the mode you select are right there. You could select it with a single press of the gen button, which is pretty nice. If you look at the AC input, it tells you what mode you're in. It tells you the status. And again, you could use drop, use, or a disconnect reason. So you've also got the frequency there in the top right, top center right, and the voltage. So again, quite a bit more information per screen. And these are buttons that when you hit them, it goes immediately there. So that's pretty nice. Now, a couple of the newer things that they did was an events key, and I'm finding this to be really interesting. It says like you had a low battery cutout in this screen, and if you hit the detail, and I've got one in front of me, and I'll go to the event screen and just hit detail. I have AGS battery charge complete on the system at my bench, and if you hit detail, you get about, well, it tells you in my system here, the battery charge came to a complete stop. The AGS did. It tells you the date, the time, the battery voltage, the state of charge at that time. So you get a whole slew of information, again, on this screen. One of the other screens that's pretty interesting is the favorites hotkey. And when I first got this, I thought it was a little bit silly, but at the same time, you know, give it a chance to work with it. And what you can do is on this unit, it's a graphical display. So, and I'll go into this further a little bit later on, but you can have, there's a whole bunch of charts that actually come up on the screen, and you'll track it through a 30-hour window. So with the favorites key, you can program any of these 4 buttons to go when you press the favorite key. So what you do really is you press and hold the favorite key, and when you hold it for 3 seconds, it looks like, it'll start blinking. And then what you want to be is using one of the other keys, you want to be where you want your favorite to go to. So if I was in the inverter screen in the charts, I would press the favorite key until it blinked, and then I would press the inverter key, and it was going to go every time I want to go there, regardless of where I'm at, in a programming mode, way down in the bottom basement of a menu somewhere. I could press favorites, press the inverter key, and I'll go exactly right to the graph that I wanted to see, which is really nice. I use the graphs a lot on these. It really helps to, well, you can graph the voltage, the charge, the state of charge, and you can watch how they correlate to each other. So that's actually quite fun. Interesting. Some of the new features that we've come up with is a configuration wizard. And again, I spoke of this in the beginning. With the configuration wizard, you can walk through and tell the system if it's an on-grid, if it's an off-grid, if it's a grid-tied, and it reflects what you're telling it. And what it'll do is you can put in all the absorb, all the voltages. You can tell it how much array it's working with. Tell it the battery. You can fill out your entire generator profile, and when it will write to the mate, and then when you put that in, you can write it to the mate and save it. It just goes out, and if you've got charge controllers, FLEXnet DCs, generators, everything like that, it just writes to all the systems that are plugged into the mate, and then they all say, well, you know, this is my absorb voltage, this is my absorb time, and they all take that information, which it's a pretty long file. So if you have a single inverter and a single charge controller, you can still do it the old way. and that's fine. You can still go to it and tell it what it is and make changes. If you have a large system, this will save you an immense amount of time. With the old system, you had 10 inverters. You had to go talk to each individual inverter, the absorb, all of the absorb, the voltage, the float, the rates, the levels, everything like that. You'd have to do that 10 times. With this, you can write to everything once. Nice thing about this also is you can save this to the SD card. So with this card there, you can save it and perhaps program this at home, take it over to a customer's site, plug it in, and then tell it to write to the mate, and boom, the mate suddenly is filled up with all the information that you already have. So this could be a pretty good time-saving thing. And I tell you the truth, I don't understand all the implications of this yet. I could see where, this could be a time saver. You could have a customer's file sitting there, and then, again, the guy with the sticky fingers that changes things, and suddenly the system isn't working. You could either, I believe, email him that file so he could download it, or just take it over to him and say, here it is again, and reconfigure the system. So that's pretty sweet. The configuration wizard is going to ask these things: the system type, the voltage, array wattage, battery type, battery capacity, all the voltages, and AC phases and breaker size, max output, generator setup info. And that's really your system sitting there in a file, which is nice. The existing configuration, there's about 3 different configuration things. The existing configuration allows ability to review the system arrangement if previously programmed. So you could see what it is, what these are all set to. So you got a guy you're troubleshooting, you could look at his system and go, oh, I don't like this. You have these batteries, let's change that. So there are several things that you can do with this. Restore the configuration. Windows will reprogram the system with a wizard file previously stored. So this is about 3 different functions you can do this: to save and restore. As things change, you can change settings and then reprogram. So this is going to be, and again, I'm still learning about all the capabilities of this the wizard. So that's interesting. I'm finding it pretty interesting to work with. When you choose the system type, one thing I've seen with this, with the Mate 3, it will show you what you tell it the system is. So if you say, I don't have solar yet, this is strictly a backup mode, you may not see the solar line here. If you say, I've got a grid as opposed to a generator, the G is the generator mark, and what you're going to see is we've gone to an icon, and on this one here you have the FLEXnet DC. This is without the FLEXnet DC. So over here you've got an actual system voltage. Over here you've got a percent, so that would be a state of charge percent. So the nice thing about this is if you say, all right, this is the symbol for solar, this is the symbol for your battery over here, and your PV here would be charging the batteries, and the batteries are going to the inverter. So what you have is you could look at this and say, well, all right, I've got PV, it's going into the batteries. Actually, the inverter here is charging, and you're inverting and charging. This is the charging line up here. This is the inverting line over here for the inverter. And one of the neat things about this is it also scales. So if you say I've got 1,000 watts worth of solar, if the graph was up to here, you know at a glance, well, I'm getting roughly 500 watts, and then you could read it over here too. Up in this area up here, you've got, if it's being charged, you're going to see the arrow going up. If it's being discharged from the batteries, the arrow will point down. And so at a glance, you can see what's going on with your system. And I've gotten used to leaving mine on the graphs and just looking at the graphs. They're really quite interesting. So even if you have a customer, what we're trying to do with this is allow people that don't even speak English to look at the system and go, oh, that's a generator, this is my inverter, this is a charge controller, and I see this much coming in. And by system of arrows, go ahead and get a clue as to what's going on in the system. So if you was in grid time mode, it's going to reflect that also. And what I mean by that, We have the power pole here symbolizing the grid. So if you tell it's off-grid or generator system, it's going to show you a G. If it's AC unit, then it's going to show you the power line. And again, just graphical displays. You got the loads for the house down here, and it just gives you an overall feel as you're looking for it. Much more information per each screen, which is pretty sweet. Let's see, moving on with the SD card function. This is, I believe we send it out with a 1 or a 2 gig card. This says 4 gig, but I just heard today that we can accept up to 8 gigs of memory. So I believe the 8 gig is correct, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But that's quite a bit of memory for a system like this. So one of the things about this is with the data logs, and I just, again, this is a pretty new system to me, so there's a lot of things with this. There's a couple here that are really nice, and I'll get into them in just a second. But with the data log, you can log data from the system. You can log the charge controller, FNDC, and events. And what I mean by that is if you're data logging, you can just go into the you actually select Mate and highlight data logging. And then down here, the internal write interval can be set from, 60 to 3,000 seconds. And what this segment of it is, and I haven't shown you the graphs yet, but this is the details that you can get into the graph. And what I mean by that is we're using this, we're writing to the graphs this many times. So it kind of gives you the granularity of the graph. And so that's how you set the granularity of the graph. The SD card is down this section here. And if you look at this file that this generates, you'll see that all the information that we're writing just gets updated every 5 seconds. So on this file, you're going to have basically a file that states the day, the year, the month, the day, the hour, down to 5-second intervals, and it just refreshes that often.
Hi, Lotus.
Yes.
Quick question here regarding the maximum distance between the Mate 3 and the hub, or Mate 3 and the inverter/controller.
You know, the old Mate 3, you could go up to 1,000 feet. I would suspect this is the same. I haven't answered that question before, but I would suspect the same. No one here has said, you know, the old one could go to 1,000, this one can go to 300. So I'm suspecting that there's no difference at 1,000 feet. And to tell you the truth, the old one was tested at 1,000 feet. That's not the extreme limit. So I would think at least 1,000 feet of cable on this would be totally acceptable.
Okay, good, thanks.
So, yeah, you could have the system out in the garage and the Mate in your bedroom. And tell you the truth, with the HTML, you could have the Mate out in the garage and be able to look at this on your computer too. So that's coming up. That I'm still learning about that. I've got one that I can actually look at my system on my computer, an HTML file, and watch it as it changes. So that's something that we're still experimenting with. It's going to be coming on a little bit more about that and later on. So what this data log file format is, and again, you see the example, the year, the day, the month, down to the hour, and then there's also basically down almost to the 5 seconds. So this is all the information that's there, the date and time, the port that you're looking at, device type, inverter current, charger current, all these various things will be on there. And the way that really looks is something like this. So you would get this file, and you would see all this section here with this information. You're going to see what port you're looking at. You're going to see the device type, and 2 just happens to be an inverter. You're going to look at the inverter current, the charging current, the buying current, and this is something that it's going to be right on the SD card. One of the other things, and that I really found interesting, is on our charge controllers and on the FNDC, you have the data log there. And what it does is it actually downloads the header on this and everything, and this is the information. So you could download your charge controller. The charge controller holds this information for 128 days. So every so often, you could take that out, write to this card, keep this file somewhere, and you could actually graph any of these on an Excel form. Really nice. I've done some troubleshooting over time and continents with just this information. There was a gentleman in North Africa whose batteries were, the positive post was being forced out of the machine, out of the batteries. And we're asking questions. He's trying to figure out what was going on and why. And he sent us this file. And what I noticed is over the file, the absorb timer very seldom went over 1 hour. Looks like the voltages are all right. For his batteries, I looked, the voltages seem to be fine, but the only thing I could see is he was hitting his absorb time every 3 or 4 days, and it was only an hour. And that tells me that he didn't adjust the absorb time to reflect the size of his batteries. And it was a bad enough weather there where he was only hitting an hour absorb over time. So it looked like he was undercharging his batteries, and then we recommended, well, you know, this is going on, at least this is somewhere to look and see. And it was quite interesting because, I mean, here I am troubleshooting a guy that I'm not even speaking to. He emailed me his file, we went through it, and I tell you, it was really interesting to do that in a geeky sort of way, but I guess that's what we do, isn't it? So,
quick question, there's a lot of quick questions. So is this an easy upgrade from the Mate 2?
Plug it in and go. Yeah, I mean it's as far as you just have to buy one and plug it in, and then it'll start working right off. It's gonna, if you take this system and plug it into an existing system, it's gonna go out and read what your system is. It's gonna look at the inverter and go, oh, it's been set up as this system. This is its absorb time and values. It's gonna take it and just plug right in and read everything that's there already, and you'll be able to go right from the minute. Of course, you know, you could fine-tune things as go on. It takes a while for the graphs to catch up. I mean, it's not like it can go back and say, oh, yeah, this is what happened 3 months ago. You know, it'll be an ongoing graph from there. But, yeah, no problem. I switch between Mates all the time here. You know, troubleshooting with somebody over with the Mate 2, and you plug it in and go, and then you put this one on and plug it in and go also. So, yeah, no problem there.
Okay, and just another question here. This is actually about the HTML. Do you know if you're going to be making this HTML interactive, i.e. you can press virtual buttons and see the respective screens or information?
You know, some of that's still conjecture at this point. What I believe, and this is where a guy like me gets in trouble, because you're trying to imagine what an engineer is going to be doing, and we talk about this. And the direction I believe we want to head is first just get a single interface up, and on the rev that I have, I do see an HTML file, and I can read mine on my computer. So that's good. The next step is to use multiple levels. So if you were a dealer, then you could see several of your systems out there. I believe the third and final step, hopefully done in the fourth quarter, is where you will be able to go in and press buttons and make changes on the fly from your computer. And that being said, man, you just you know, that's the million-dollar question almost. I mean, you know, engineers always say, well, let's do this, and you go, great. Then you go out and tell people, and then all of a sudden they say, you know, because of this and that, we're now going to go this direction. So I just want to quantify that. That is where we're heading, so that you can control things via the Internet. And actually, that is huge, because that's the way systems are going. You're starting to look at large battery or renewable sources being attached to the grid and sell back on demand when it's needed. So I think we kind of recognize that's a direction to go. And so yes, I believe the answer is yes to that, but boy, that's yes in the future. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that does. It's a good answer, and hopefully we can get go forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be exciting. I see that as something that is highly desirable. I mean, they're coming out with massive battery banks, and with our new inverter, it's, you know, we call it the Radian. Internal name was the Beast. It's an 8K unit, and while it's shortly, we're waiting for ETL at this point, it's an 8K unit, should be stackable up to 10 units. So, boy, with the ability to sell on demand at that to support grids and everything, that's a viable thing. So I believe that's a direction. But again, man, I'm not the guy leading the boat. They don't even let me pull on the oars. So that's kind of what I would my take on that. One of the other things is the FNDC data log, and it's got the same thing. I mean, this is the information that you can write to your card and just salt it away and save stuff like this. Troubleshooting over time, huge. This is what my system did last year. This is what it did last month. It's the same thing. Hey, nothing's changed. Everything's working just like it was before. But, you know, suddenly, like on that last file, suddenly I'm not hitting my absorb time. How come? It gives you an idea to go look. So I could see where, as a dealer or an installer, you could have these sitting up and just go through your customer stuff and say, you know, this guy made absorption value this time in the morning every day up till here. What happened here? Big storm, maybe a frisbee up on the roof. It gives you an idea where to start looking, which is huge. It'd be really nice to be able to troubleshoot a customer's system before you even know it isn't working up to optimum. And that's going to be huge with some of this stuff. One of the other things is I showed you the event key. It actually has an event log too. So, I mean, you could download this log here and power up, power down, error messages on here. So you could store this also and say, you know, my generator started every 3 days at this time. It's a pretty static system. Everything seems to be going along, and suddenly something changes. What changes tells you exactly when and what changed. And again, just another troubleshooting thing, more information to use should trouble arise. Great way of going back and saying, you know, your generator hasn't started for a week. You know, maybe it started every 3 days. Before your batteries run dry and you call me, maybe I should look and see why. Maybe the guy's on vacation. Maybe something happened to the generator, or the start sequence has gone awry. But it's just a way of looking. Anytime you can have more information about a system, the better off you are. One of the things that I've been talking about all along is the mate graphing. And this is really a great little feature function. This is the graphs for the FNDC state of charge, battery graph, all 3 shunts, the inverter, the output wattage, battery graph, the cell, the buy, and the charging. Charge controller, you got the battery graph, PV input, and the output to the battery. And what we're talking about here is just like this. This is actual graph off of one of the Mate 3s. And what's nice about this is this area here, you get about a 30-hour window. So you get, you know, a little over a day. You get the charger. If this was, I believe this is an inverter window. I'm not 100% certain, but you get either the state of charge here. You get the information on this axis here. So if you tell it I've got a 500-watt array, and then you see 2.5, it kind of lets you know where you're at. And it's pretty cool because over time you can really, it helps the customer. At least it's helped me to correlate, all right, I just started an absorb charge and I see my voltage rising up. You can follow it with the state of charge. As the voltage rises up, the state of charge goes up. You can look at the current, and the current's rising. When you hit your absorb value, you can watch your state of charge still continue to go up. Your voltage holds at the peak right there where I said it should. You know, this is my 14.7 or whatever you have it set to. And then you can watch the current slowly drop off, and it really gives you a correlation between all those events happening at once. I found it really interesting. And there's the charts, again, for the inverter, the charge controller, and the FLEXnet DC. So it gives you a good chance to go through and see things. Here's the output graph. And something like this, you could graph a guy's peak load time. You know, hey, you're using a lot of current right here, or a lot of loads are on at this point. You can watch the guy's energy profile throughout the 30-hour window. Could be helpful, and it's helpful to the customer too. You know, if you had you're inverting, you could watch your in the morning when you first wake up, your batteries are normally at a low, and it just lets you see what's going on. This would be the example of a bar graph from an inverter, how much is coming in from the grid or the generator over time. This is how much I brought in for my loads. So it's pretty cool on that. I've enjoyed looking at these and just studying them a bit. As far as firmware upgrades, one of the things that we tried to do is in the past with the Mate, as it got advanced, as we added features, as things changed, we would, of course, do upgrades. And then if a customer needed an upgrade, he could either send his unit into us and we'd upgrade it for free. You know, OutBack's pretty cool along that line. We're not, trying to make a buck each time you touch us, so that's nice. But you could also, at that point with the old Mate, we would also send you one out in advance. A lot of people, if you have AGS or HPX or some of the functions that are in the Mate, they really couldn't do without the Mate because the system wouldn't function properly. So OutBack traditionally would just send you out a used Mate, and when you get it, plug it in, reprogram it, and send the old one back, and we pass it on to the next guy. With this, you're going to be able to go onto our website and download to the SD card, and then actually just go ahead and write the new latest and greatest upgrades right to the Mate as we speak. And that saves us shipping, it saves you time, you get the latest rev. That's really a cool little feature. I was excited to see that because, people are constantly going, hey, I need to get a new Mate, I need to upgrade this thing. And now there's no more, you don't have to even send it in, you can just do it yourself. And literally you'll go right to our website, go to where the Mate, the newest Mate 3 web files are, and just download them, send it to your SD card, tell this thing to upgrade. And kind of the way you do that, you would go to the Mate, you could say, and then, let me go back here one, you select the Mate, and then you could go ahead and just say update. And what it really does is just reads from the file, your system stays functional while that's going on, and then after it's uploaded, you're going to get a light, going to flash a couple times, and you'll be upgraded. One of the things that you'll see here is software upgrades. You see for the inverter, the charge controller, and the battery monitor. This, they're saying NA not available. The Mate's the only one right now that you can upgrade, with the exception of the new unit, the Radiant. This has been programmed for Radiant. If you have a Radiant, you'll see it there, and that's kind of exciting too, because that being a new project, as that advances and new features and functions coming into that, you'll be able to upgrade that over the website also, which is pretty cool now. You don't have to send anything in. You don't need chipsets. I think that's going to be a huge feature. Are we all right on questions? Is there anything else there?
Yep, there's a quick question here. Is there allocation to monitor the generator while it is running? My generator has a gen temp, oil level, and fuel level, which can be monitored remotely.
At this point, no. I don't know of that being able to monitor that. That would require us to be able to talk to that generator. And, now maybe if we collude with generators, we could include something like that. But at this point, I haven't heard of that being as a feature or a function. But boy, that's definitely a desirable thing. I don't know if you've noticed in the past, but, well, I'm sure you have, it's really hard to get companies together to give up their secrets and their code levels to another company. Usually that degree of partnership is not something that's readily available. I mean, people are always going, well, I'm AC coupling with the Sunny Boys. Can you guys talk to them? And it's like, not a chance. And at this point, we don't speak with the generators either. Great idea, but boy, that's like a ex-boyfriend and husband getting in the same room and just having a good time. Yeah, at this point, no, sir.
Good answer. Thank you.
Not a bad question, though. I think, gosh, Generac has been great to work with. I don't see why that wouldn't be a good idea to say, hey, yeah, we do speak with Generac. They've got that new 6K generator that looks really nice. It's an RE-style generator, meaning it's got a very high oil reserve. It's meant for renewable energy systems and off-grid. So, boy, that's a huge question. That's a good point to go look for somebody and ask them. We've gone through that, and then installer settings. This is something that I'm afraid this is going to bite us a little bit, but nonetheless, it's what people have asked for. I mean, I don't know, everyone here has probably had the button pusher. Coming from tech support, we get this constantly where you're up, you're running, you got the guy going, everything's working fine, and he calls back 3 days later and goes, oh, this thing isn't charging, or it's not inverting, it's not doing something, and you go in and some selections have been changed, and you go, you changed this, and they swear up and down that they didn't. So as an installer and a dealer, what you can do is you're going to have installer settings. And what this is going to do, first of all, you'll be able to put in your phone number, your name, your address, and personal information on you, the installer, into this system. So you no longer have to leave a card. Your customer should be able to go and look at that and have your phone number right there to call you. The other thing is you can set access levels. And what we mean by this is if you've got a guy that constantly causes trouble, you can literally lock him out of his own system. And what we mean by that is you're going to have either full access, where you could set up a customer to full access, where, you're going to do everything you want on this system. You're a great customer. You really understand everything. You could have set it to advanced, where you have slightly less control as a user. You don't get all the screens. You might not get, and these are listed in the manual. I won't go into the detail on each one. And there's also just a minimum where, you don't understand what you're doing, but I want you to be able to read it and do some things, and that's a minimum level. And there is just a basic level where you can come over here and look at the screen, walk through a couple status screens, and see your graphs and stuff like that. But I'm not going to let you into any of the programming. So I could see where that could be very useful. Some people, there are certain situations. We did an install on a military base where the people that were there had no clue how the system worked. They didn't care. They didn't want to know. And yet you've got this mate hanging on the wall so they could read it. Big danger, because you get somebody walks up and starts pressing buttons, and who knows what he's going to change, and he doesn't know what he's going to change. That would be a perfect thing to say, no one here knows what's going on. No one here is ever going to learn. It's in a public arena. We just want to have some solar in here and be able to have a screen show it. So that would be a great case for your basic minimum. These are the screens. Nobody's going to be able to get in here and mess it up. So there are situations where that would be advantage. I see where an installer is going to do this, going to set a guy to minimum, and the installer, through no fault of his own, through life, just things going on, is going to disappear. Now this customer can't change anything. He can't do anything. He can read some of the screens. So there's also a challenge here. You can challenge the installer's password. And what you would do is you would just go to your manual. You can read how to challenge. It's going to issue a challenge code. You'll be able to call us up. We'll be able to issue you a number, and you'll be able to go in there and change the installer's password and make it something that works for you. That way, if there is, we call them an orphan system for some reason, guy gets a great job in Borneo, goes to Borneo, and he no longer is able to maintain the system he has. So I could see the advantages and disadvantages in that one system alone on that military base. There wasn't anyone there that was ever going to learn the system. Basic would be great for them. They can't do any damage, and yet I also see the abandoned homeowner that can't get into the system, and that's why they allowed this challenge. Any questions on that? Okay.
No, it looks like we're good.
Okay. One of the things, OutBack being, and these are just walking through, the installer password, you know how on our regular password is 141, and that's just the square root of 2. What they did with this is they put it in for the square root of 3. So that's the basic password for the installer is the square root of 3, 1732. And so that's that. installer password, FLEXnet DC setup, and you can actually go through on a single screen and almost set up everything on your FLEXnet DC. In the old Mate, you had to go through almost 3 different menu systems where you could see one piece of information. You put in your amp hours here. If you didn't know to change everything else, then you would have trouble setting up and making your FNDC work right. This thing here, it's all on one screen, which is awfully nice to have that large of a display and you see that much information at once. You still have the automatic gen start, and again, a one-screen system where you get, AGS enabled, your fault time, warm-up time, cool down time. One other thing they added on this is with if you had a DC generator, up till now in the older Mate, what you could do is you could set a voltage, your absorbed voltage that it would go to. So when it goes to that level, then you would have, I forget how much it was. It was a timer that hold this voltage for this amount of time and then tell the DC generator to turn off. That was the stop voltage. Well, on this one, I believe, and it doesn't reflect on this screen here, this may be an older screen, but I believe that they even put in an absorb time for a DC generator. So now, not having, you'll be able to, it's a little bit more inclusive for a DC generator. It's not just a voltage and a little bit of time. You actually set the absorb time for a DC generator. So that's pretty sweet. A couple things there. One of the other things, and I didn't note it, maybe I did, on the AC input, you actually got a frequency meter. So that was one of the things that you just go, well, what's your frequency? And they go, I don't know, can't you tell me? You say, no, you're going to need a meter that reads frequency, and most general people don't have that. So now we can read frequency on the incoming AC too. So that's nice. And as far as future upgrades, we addressed some of this a little bit earlier, but what we're trying to do is leave enough room for expansion to try to figure out where this should go and go there. It's not a finished product at all. It was pretty interesting when this thing first came out. It was a while ago now. I happened to have the good fortune to go to Hawaii, and they said, all right, well, let's go talk about this thing. And it was like, all right, so what does it do? So slowly it's been coming on. The manual's been improving, and that was before there was even a manual. So what they're doing, though, is they're leaving room for improvement and expansion. It's really interesting, some of the things Darren's coming up with. Darren Emmons is the main guy on this Mate 3. And like I said, the single user internet, that's actually in the rev I have right now. I can call up, go through, and look at an IP address on my Mate and call it up, and I can view it on my computer. Nice, plug the Mate right into my computer, and it goes, plug it into a router, and I can catch it from there. Multiple system monitoring, hopefully Q3, and remote troubleshooting and adjustments, Q4. So that's kind of the shot of the future on that. And again, remember where I said earlier, I'm not in charge of the boat, and this is where we think we're heading. This is what I'm talking about here, and dates are subject to change. So, these dates are hopeful ballparks for us. They are subject to change. This is how the single web interface looks, and you can go to status, mode, meters, events, history, setup, and system. And this is what it's going to look like. And mine actually does look like this. I mean, you can see some of the things on here that are pretty interesting. Battery voltage, state of charge, net in, net out on your batteries, amps, channel A, B, and this is a little bit harder to read. Battery and charge controller information and inverter information there. So this is kind of what the web interface looks like now, and I know it's going to change as we go, but it seems like a pretty decent start. The way the internet and computer could be set up is just like this. The Mate plugs in as normally to the system, and then you've got the Cat5 cable going over to your computer. There are, in the Mate manual, it shows you quite a few other configurations. I didn't go to all of them here. I think my hour is about 3 minutes away from being up. So, and really that's it. I would be open for questions if anyone has anything to, any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Lonis. We really appreciate your presentation there. So if anybody does have any questions, please type them in now. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Great turnout and for what's looking to be a great product.
Listen, I'm going to leave this up on the screen back here. It's my email address. So, guys, if there's anything out there that I missed, anything you're curious about, anything you'd like, any information you think I can get to you, please feel free to either call me, email me. I'll do every attempt I can to get back to you with an answer. And again, I don't even pretend to know everything. So, you know, there's people here that should or give me clues as to what's going on, which directions we're taking, and what's available. So, again, this is my email address here. Feel free to email me. That's great.